Hi, girls. I'm really excited about this week. Building off of what we talked about last week with food webs, food chains, and food webs, and how what eats what, and how that energy is passed from the producers, which are the plants that produce their own food, from the energy from the sun, and they pass those calories on up the food chain to even the top predators. Those calories just get passed along. So we're going to talk more about that, and then we're going to watch a movie this week, which I'm really excited about. I love this movie, and you're going to basically do what you did last week with your food web, and you're going to do that based on what you see in the movie. So I'm gonna go through a slideshow. There is a quiz about this slideshow at the end. And when the slideshow's over, I'm then going to just kind of give you a tour of PowerSchool this week. So this might be a little bit of a long video. So be patient with me. So this week, whoop, sorry, not ready. So I do think this week is going to be fun because I love this movie so much and I'm so excited to share it with you. It's about this idea we were talking about last week of balance and biodiversity, which is a new word maybe to you that I will explain a little bit farther along in this slideshow. So we're going to revisit that food web idea. The food web can also be shown as a pyramid because all levels of the food web get their energy to live and grow from what they're eating. So producers use sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide from the air or photosynthesis to make their food. So you can see here that we have this up in the top right-hand corner of food chain, which is a very simplified version of taking 3 or 4 living things and showing how they're connected. A food web is a little more, adds some variety and a number of living things to show how a broader group of living things are connected. And then you can show the same living things in this pyramid form, which shows you the energy. It's kind of they call it an energy pyramid because at the bottom where the producers are is where the most energy is stored. And then the next level is the living things that eat the plants. And then the level above that is what eats the animals that eat the plants, and then you keep going and going. Obviously some animals eat both plants and animals, and you'll find different levels of pyramids. Some pyramids are real simple, some of them are more complex. It doesn't really matter to me how complex you want to get as we talk about this further. But it's in the shape of a pyramid, like I said, because there are more producers and fewer top consumers or predators. Like if we had as many bears or coyotes as we have rats or ants, we would be lopsided and upside down. It would not be a good situation. So all the calories or energies available in the food web start with the producers down here at the bottom, which of course makes their calories from the energy from the sun. So our ecosystem, or where we live here in Nashville, is basically a temperate forest. So a lot of you in your food webs last week that were awesome had these types of animals in your food web. This is how you would arrange them in a pyramid. So you would have your decomposers down in the soil, and then you have your plants, your producers, primary producers, your consumers. You have different levels of consumers depending on what they eat. And then you have those top predators. So all the calories available in a food web start with the producer. So you can see that in this very simple food web. This is an extremely simple one. We have a lot more living things in our temperate forest ecosystem than these things. So you could put living things in your food web that you made into an energy pyramid. You would just sort them in layers rather than in a web. Hopefully there are actually more living things, like I said, in your ecosystem than just these few animals. While you're watching The Biggest Little Farm, you'll need to pay attention to the living things and how they interact. You might want to write them down. So as you watch the movie, you're going to be wanting to write them down, like in a web, like you did last week for your homework. You'll just want to take your notes that way, like how are all these things I'm seeing connecting? So this is an example of a marine energy pyramid. So you could create a food web or a pyramid using marine life too. And I wanted to show this because it was interesting. Some of you actually had marine life in your food web, that you turned in. But these are two different ecosystems. The living things in these areas may not ever interact as a food web. So, for example, if all of the squirrels died, none of these animals over here in the ocean are going to care or go hungry, right? Dolphins, losing all the dolphins or losing all the, they're not going to affect the foxes or the fir trees, right? So they're two different ecosystems. So it's important when you create a web that you're creating a web of connectedness. So in the marine food pyramid or food web, however you want to think about it or talk about it, if dolphins become extinct, what would happen to the population of squid? So up here in the very top of this pyramid, you have top carnivores, sharks, dolphins, albatross. You have the third level down or the next one, which is what they eat. And let's just use squid as an example. If all of the dolphins were to become extinct, what would happen to the population of squid? Well, the squid population would increase because there would be fewer predators eating squid. Does that make sense? So also, you can think about it even one more layer. If there were more squid, what would happen to the fish that they eat? Squid would probably be then competing for food, so the population of those fish would go down. So, like I said before, these are super simplified examples of the living things in any ecosystem. In a healthy and diverse ecosystem, there are more top carnivores than just dolphins. So the food web would stay strong and survive the loss of the dolphins. In that marine example, if you lost dolphins, we also have sharks and albatross, we have orcas, we have all kinds of living things that might make up for the loss of dolphins, although it would be terribly tragic and sad because dolphins make me happy. So think about the health of an entire ecosystem. An ecosystem is all the living and non-living things that are interconnected in a community. So how is the health of an entire ecosystem dependent? So if a large region suffers from a drought and the plants die off, what happens to the food web in that area? So if these plants down here in the bottom, where's my cursor? These plants all die because there's no water, then all of the living things above it will start to have trouble surviving, and so will all of the living things in the soil that make the soil organic and rich. So biodiversity, there's that word again that I said we'd talk about. Bio means life, and diversity means a variety of different things. So biodiversity is the web of life. It's the variety of living things on Earth. So if you think about the food web that you created, think about how really, really complex it really is. And if you think about that web as like a fabric, this image here on the left shows an ecosystem with less biodiversity. And so if one little area is endangered or dies off or struggling, then all of the other things connected to it are going to have a harder time surviving. So we're looking over here on the right, this more diverse ecosystem would have an easier time overcoming a change. So in the movie that you're going to watch that I'm so excited about, in this movie, John, and I'm going to change this for the slideshow that I post online, but I can't remember her name. John and his wife decided to start, in fact, his name might not be John. The husband and wife that are the farmers decided to start a farm. And the favorite thing about this movie is how willing they are to make mistakes and how they learn by paying close attention. Scientists pay close attention. That's why I love this. And you'll see how the farmers learn how to create balance and connectedness between the living things on their farm. This is exactly what we've been talking about. So get out your popcorn. The movie runs an hour and 31 minutes. You can watch it all at the same time or in parts. It's totally up to you. It's a family-oriented, family-friendly movie, so you can watch it with anybody. But you will need to take notes while you watch. You're going to want to create a web of life, basically. So a web, an energy web, a food web, just like you did last week, but for the living things on the farm. And you're going to need to put a lot, I want a rich, diverse food web. So at least 20 living things should be in your food web and in your notes. The following day, after you watch the movie, that last assignment, you'll create an energy pyramid using the things that you took, like the from your notes from the day before. So you create a web while you're watching the movie, and then the lesson 3 will be creating a pyramid in PowerSchool, and all the instructions are in PowerSchool. So I think this is going to be really fun. I'm super excited. I also now want to give you a little tour of PowerSchool, if I can. There we go. Whoops. How do I get out of this? Okay. So PowerSchool this week is set up exactly the same way. This video will be right here. Lesson 1 is to watch this video and then take a quick quiz on the video. Lesson 2 is to watch the movie and take notes. You will upload your notes to Padlet. So there's 2 Padlet links, kind of like there were 2 Flipgrid links the week we did Genius Hour. There's this note Padlet, and then there'll be the lesson 3 Padlet. So lesson 3, lesson 2 will be while you're watching the movie, take notes on all the living things and how they're connected as a web, and you should have more than 20 living things. Make sure you list all the types of producers, consumers, and decomposers that you see in the movie, and then you're going to submit those notes to Padlet. And then in lesson 3, you're creating, you're sorting them basically into an energy pyramid, which should look really nice and neat and be easy to read, and you'll put that on Padlet. I'm excited to get started this week, and I won't see you this week until later in the week on a Zoom. I'm going to put the VUSP so we can talk about the movie later in the week. All right, thank you. Have fun.